Welcome, everybody. I'm Elinor Silverstein, and I am here to introduce Linda Tellington-Jones to her own book club and Dr. Allen Schoen, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. And Dr. Allen Schoen, agreed to come and speak with us about his incredible book called The Compassionate Equestrian. And I just want to give you a little bit of information about Dr. Schoen. Dr. Schoen is one of the pioneers in veterinary acupuncture and natural therapies. And Dr. Schoen is a graduate from Cornell Veterinary School of Medicine, which is the best school of veterinary medicine in North America. And have you been practicing since 1982, or this is when you started bringing in holistic medicine and a different way of thinking and working with animals?
Yeah, I actually graduated in 1978 and started teaching and training and established the Department of Veterinary Acupuncture at the Animal Medical Center in New York City in 1982, and that was the first Department of Veterinary Acupuncture outside of China ever.
Wow. Wow.
And I was blessed that Linda and I gave a workshop way back when in 1989 at the Kent School in Connecticut, where that was the first time we worked together. And we gave a 3-day workshop, and it was so beautiful and so harmonious and touched so many people. And so it's a joy to be back here with Linda. Our lives have kind of danced on similar journeys and yet different paths for all these decades.
Wow. And Linda, you have been working with horses all of your life. For people who might not know you, as we go to put this video out for other people to get to see, can you talk a little bit about some of your history, and then we will be able to tie in our connection about how you'll both talk about compassion.
Well, I have been blessed to be with horses now for 72 years. I'm 78 and excited to be that. And I started riding when I was 6. I've had the great fortune to really know a lot of wonderful, wonderful people who've been influential in my life. And I've developed this system now called Tellington-Touch training that is in 36 countries now. And I'm just really blessed to have wonderful publishers who've brought out 21 books in 15 languages. And my passion, my tick, is the concept of the wisdom of ourselves. And that's what these little circular 1 1/4 basic Tellington-Touch is about. And what that does, and Alan, you and I haven't talked about this, but what we have discovered is that by moving the skin very gently in these 1 1/4 circles, that we activate both the left brain, the logic with which we cannot exist in this planet, and the right brain, the feeling, the compassion. And that's why I'm just so excited to support you in this book, The Compassionate Equestrian, because in the horse world, we've got a long way to go for the riders to feel their own hearts, to feel themselves. And without that daring to feel ourselves and to bring forgiveness into our lives, no, let's put it the other way. With that possibility, then we can really make a difference on this planet. And we need that compassion in order to survive and to make a difference. And that's what I feel your book brings to this equestrian world.
And I would just like to add in, as a non-equestrian, as a person that doesn't have a horse, to welcome everybody who have horses in their lives and don't have horses and never had a horse. This is not only about horses, but this is about all of us with our compassion in touch and in our thinking. As I was reading this, it changed my thinking in my way of experiencing the world. And so, Linda, would you like to make an introduction that you wanted to start with, and then we can have Allen start to talk about some of the things you want to ask him?
Absolutely. And this book is actually co-authored with Dr. Schoen and Susan Gordon. And I've chosen actually not to include the part with Susan Gordon because we need all of our time with Dr. Schoen. And I just have to say that this is for me an opportunity to bring compassion and understanding, because some of the places that Susan is at in the horse world are very different methodology than what I've found it's possible to use. And so this is our opportunity, first of all, to thank Susan for making this book possible, because if she'd not called Allen, Dr. Schoen, and said, you know, I would like to support this book, it wouldn't happen. So I give great thanks to her. And I just want to say one thing. When I read on my iPad, I have the book right beside me because I love the feeling of this book, but most of my studying is done on my iPad. And when I first started into the book and I came across the word compassion, the first thing I did was Google the definition. And it came up with a definition of pity. And actually, I know we've talked about this because I don't believe you come from that point, Ellen, and I certainly don't, because I think pity stops the process. It's not acknowledging that each of us have a journey. And one of the statements that I've lived with throughout my life has been a quote from a book by Ouspensky that I read when I was 21. He was a student of Gurdjieff. And he said that it's necessary to go through the crystallization of fire in order to hone the soul. And for me, with all of the journeys that we go on in life, I live by this, and that's why I love working with you, Allen and Elinor. I know that I'm not a human being with a soul. I know that I am a soul living the human experience. And all of these challenges that we have in our life is our opportunity to come from a place of understanding and forgiveness. And that's what I love in your book also, Ellen. It's a big part of forgiveness of ourselves and each other and our humanness. So I want to turn it over now to you, because this is a wonderful book and I know that you have a lot to say about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda and Elinor. It's a joy to be here with you. And listening to both of you, there's so much, after every sentence I said, oh, there's so much joy to share here. You know, first I would like to say that, yes, if it wasn't for my co-author, Susan, this wouldn't have happened. I'm so busy, and she came into my life and said, I have the time and I would like to do this. And she, I just want to, if anyone has any questions about her approaches, you can email the website, the Compassionate Equestrian. She said she'd be glad to answer them, because her journey with horses has also shifted her, and it's been transformative for her. And her writing in this book also shifted her as we went through it, it shifted her perspective on what compassion really is too. And that's my wish to everyone, that this book, it's more than just a book. It is, to me, when I lecture on it, I go, this is an invitation to everyone who reads it to empower everyone that we actually can make a difference in the world. And what I do in the book, well, two things. One is, Elinor mentioned, it's not just for horse people. No, I was actually working on another book for all beings on compassion and on integrating the latest in neuroscience, quantum physics with the human-animal bond and healing of ourselves, animals, and the planet, and what we actually can be doing. And then Susan came along and said, oh, you do so much with horses and this and that, and I'm a holistic horse trainer. I would love to do this. So I said, I'm so busy. And she said, okay. So that's how this evolved, this particular book. And I'm working on this for all beings now. When you bring up, Linda, about compassion, I know it's amazing that the first thing was pity, because compassion and pity, it's a great point, are so different. Pity is condescending. It's looking at self versus other, right? And compassion is feeling and acknowledging, but not taking on, but feeling compassion for the pain and suffering in all beings, but not taking on to ourselves, not being attached to it, but by feeling that pain, we can be supportive, loving, compassionate for everyone's journey, and realizing that there is no difference between self and other. We're all on this journey. We're all experience pain and suffering, and we have compassion for it. What I've seen, as you were mentioning earlier, Linda, is in the horse world, you know, my journey as a veterinarian, ever since I was a little kid, you know, like I knew I had this inner awareness that I was going to be a veterinarian. And I wrote, when I grow up, I'm going to go to Cornell Vet School, not knowing how hard it was to get in. And I was going to go and help all animals that couldn't be helped any other way. I had no idea that that journey would lead me from Cornell into practicing on all creatures great and small in New England, you know, everything from horses, dogs, cats, cows, pigs, llamas. We were the primary veterinary practice for all of Southern New England, to then looking at realizing my passion was helping animals that couldn't be helped any other way. And that started with acupuncture, then herbs, chiropractic, manual therapies. Then I connected and started hearing about the amazing work you were doing with Tellington Touch. And then we connected, and I've, you know, it's an endless journey. And then a number of years ago, when I was a professor at Colorado State University Veterinary School, Tufts University, I'd written 7 books at that time, and I was getting all these amazing offers everywhere for being endowed faculty, for setting up new centers for alternative cancer therapies. And I said, you know, the way what's happening in the world right now, I felt like any next step was like putting a Band-Aid on the Titanic. And I retreated to my little cabin in the small island of British Columbia, and I went into deep meditative states and said, and I had a number of near-death-like experiences that made me realize there's a much bigger picture. And I don't talk about that too often. I'm sharing it with you and your group. But out of that, I said, okay, if I have X number of hours left on the planet, and knock on wood, right now I'm healthy and plan on staying here for a while longer, but that how can I be of the greatest benefit with the time I have? And that goes back to what you're saying, the awareness, the realization that we are a soul, we are a spirit being in physical form here, being a benefit. And when we start having these awarenesses and realizations, then it shifts our perspective. So I kept on saying, okay, with whatever length of time one has, how can I be of the most benefit? And I was getting all these amazing offers, and I kept saying, no, that's a Band-Aid, that's a Band-Aid. And then I came across in a number of different things, realized, oh, if we don't shift and heal our own hearts and minds and come from a truly compassionate place for all beings, it all gets filtered. And that's what I started seeing in the horse world. I started getting, you know, like I was pioneering all these new approaches, but they were being used, and they're great. I'm so grateful. Every horse licks me and kisses me after I help them, and the joy and everything. But I also realized they were helping still, maybe getting a horse to next race or this or that. And the real healing at the other end of the reins, the key was healing the hearts and minds of the riders, the trainers, the quote unquote owners, even though an owner is an inappropriate term. but that was the key. And that's what started leading me on this journey of saying, okay, as a veterinarian, to me now, ultimate healing is healing the hearts and minds of every being, and then realizing through that healing, then they can go out and be of benefit.
And I have something to say about what you just started this explanation with, and that is, you said as a child, you remember saying you had the intention of going to Cornell. And you and I know, because we've talked about this a lot, that in the horse world, we hear quite a bit of talk about, being nice to horses, but that's not the primary what we hear. And so you and I have both shared, and I'll share this with any of you, there are times when I think I can't stay in the horse world anymore. I have to walk away. And then I realize, wait a minute, when we understand the power of intention and we understand the amazing quantum physics and what we know about this quantum field and how every thought, every feeling, every emotion, and every belief that we have does make a difference. It means that every one of us can make a difference. And we just take that hint that you gave, that power of intention, you are going to go to Cornell, and you did, and we can all together, all of us on this talk, and all who are going to be looking at it when we're out on YouTube, and all who read your book and all who read my books, we can just set the intention for the highest good, that we will come to a place where we realize it's time to give our will to the will of Source, to be able to care about the environment, about the animals, about our fellow beings. And just by that intention, we can make a difference. And that's why your book is so important. And that's why I thank Trafalgar, because they've done a great job with this book. And I thank again Susan Gordon.
Yeah.
And Dr. Schoen and Linda, I want to say that, which book is it that, Linda, that you wrote about this interconnectedness that we all have with each other? And then Dr. Schoen, in this book, you write on page 7 that goes through the whole book about the trans-species field theory, which is that interconnectedness. And to me, it's like when more than one person all around the world starts hearing and feeling these same things and putting it out there, is the time that its potency starts coming to fruition, and the general public, people really start to sense and feel that. And I would love for you to talk about that, because it's the same in T-Touch. It's the same when we go and touch animals and we see all the animals in the room make a shift. Or when we see in the Feldenkrais method, when 100 people are on the floor lying down doing the awareness through movement, there is a group shift that happens in the room. And this is something worthy for us to have that discussion, because in there is compassion and a knowing. What would you like to say about that?
Well, there are 3 components to this book that I'd like everyone watching this to really get. And one of them just happened as Linda was chatting, and then you bring up the trans-species field. A bald eagle just started circling right in front of my window and looking right in as we're talking about this. Okay?
Yes.
And so there are 3 components. Well, first, I would like to just mention how grateful I am to Trafalgar Books and to Martha Cook and Rebecca Didier, because they also brought Linda and I back together, because we're all so busy doing our own thing. And Rebecca helped and co-authored a book with Linda, her wonderful book with Trafalgar on mind, body, soul in dressage, and was instrumental in really getting my intention with this book. So there are 3 components that I would like everyone to take home as part of this invitation, that this Zoom session is an invitation that we can actually make a difference on the planet as of watching this, okay? So there are three components. One is where I kind of came across this through the charterforcompassion.org, okay, which everyone can go to. And Dr. Karen Armstrong, who was at Princeton at the time, won the TED Talk Prize for 2009 on proposing this Charter for Compassion, that it's a foundation for making all choices in the world based on compassion for all beings, which again, as Linda said, it's not about pity. It's about we're all in this together. So number one, that's one of the first foundations of the book. And I'd encourage you all, if you want to read up more, just go to that website and work on that. And the Compassionate Equestrian is their first connection to the animal world in it. Okay. Then two is what I call taking the intention, the 10 minutes of compassion. And this is based on neuroscience and the latest research from Dr. Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin Neuroscience Lab and his new Center for Healthy Minds. And they started doing MRIs on Tibetan monks and showing them how when they're meditating on being a benefit to others and on compassion, how the areas in the prefrontal cortex for happiness start lighting up and start showing that when we have compassion for others, we're actually happier. So it's a beautiful biofeedback. But then some skeptics said, yeah, how do you know those monks weren't just happy anyway? And brought that to it. And then he went and said, okay, and he took a group of freshman college students and did MRIs on them when they started college and just started with two groups and had them as baseline functional MRIs. And then he took half the group and did just 10 minutes a day of training on intention for compassion, on meditating on compassion for others, and then repeated the MRIs in the two groups. The group that didn't do it, no difference. The group that did just 10 minutes a day for just 2 weeks, it changed their brains and they were happier. Okay, so it shows that just short periods of time, in a short period of time of 2 weeks, we can actually become happier, more compassionate by doing that. So then I thought, and then the third component, and then I'll bring them all together, how that relates to horses and to the world. The third part is what, after 38 years of pioneering all these different approaches in veterinary medicine, I realized going to horse barns, going to animal shelters, animal hospitals, everywhere I went where humans and animals interacted, I always felt like there was this energetic field, okay, that everyone interacts with. Like if you go into a horse barn or you go into an animal shelter or an animal hospital, and some of them you go into and you go, oh my God, the horses have their ears back, everyone's angry, there's really obnoxious, intense music playing, no one's happy, and I go, exit stage left, let me out of here, and then I started realizing that, okay, I can actually be a benefit there maybe by, through this compassion training, go in there and try to make a difference. And in many barns I was able to. In others it didn't look like I did at that moment, but maybe who knows what seeds we plant, right? Exactly. But then, and I started seeing it in animal hospitals everywhere, so then I started seeing what I started calling the transspecies field theory. And I knew something was existing. But when I started studying the latest in quantum physics, I started recognizing that we actually do emanate this field, which I always felt, but now with heart math, they're able to measure the heart rate variability of horses and people and how they resonate. And we can do this between people. Now there's a study on it with horses, and I'm sure every animal that happens. And I had the epiphany when reading about heart math. Wow, okay, human heart's this big, a horse's heart's really big. Maybe that's why there's a deep connection between, especially women, but people and horses, is the field might even be bigger. Okay, and I won't go into all the details on heart math. I'd recommend, I go into it a bit in the book, but you can go to the heart math website and learn all about their amazing work. So then I started realizing in this other research that we're continuously emitting these fields, and as well as the smells, everything. So that's when I proposed the transspecies field theory. So that's what happens if we're not conscious about it. If, like what Linda was saying, we don't bring intention in, it's just happening. So if we're angry, if we're impatient, if we were just caught in traffic before we got to the horse barn and someone else was in road rage, or we're in road rage, and then we walk into the barn, it's like, right? Okay, so one of the proposals I have in the book is if everyone, either at the beginning of their day or right before they get into the horse barn, they stop, they take 10 minutes of slowly breathing, because research at Harvard Mind-Body Medicine Institute found the key to having this benefit for you and others is coordinating a muscle movement such as breathing with the intention. And that really shifts it in us. So breathing, and this is what all the meditation studies forever show. So it's just by breathing, slow, deep breaths, and then visualize someone in your life that you care for, whether it's a horse, a dog, a person, a plant, someone that's passed on, whatever, that you go, oh, bring them into your present field and into your memory, into your mind, into your visual field, and feel loving kindness and compassion for them. Okay, if we do that for 10 minutes before we get into the horse barn, or 10 minutes at the beginning of the day, and we bring in an intention of saying, okay, I feel compassion for that person or that animal, and then let me expand that to all beings in that barn, in that shelter, and then expand that to all beings that we interact with all day long. It actually empowers us that we can be a benefit to everyone. That's where the second theory I propose, what I call the compassionate field theory, comes in.
So Ellen, may I just interject something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I get carried away with all of it.
You do. But for those who might not know heart math, it's HEART, capital MATH, runtogether.org or .com. And they have wonderful webinars every week, wonderful visionaries who, to me, it's one of the most important organizations on the planet. And that is their basic premise for coming into heart coherence, which is our best state for our immune system, is the idea of just the breath and thinking of this somebody, some plant, some place in nature that we love. And what we have added to it that I want to share with you after, because you don't know this yet, we add what we call the heart hug, where we put one hand over the other and imagine the face of a clock on our heart chakra, and very gently, in whichever direction you prefer, we imagine the 6 o'clock toward the ground, we go 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9. Take this lovely deep breath and smile, because the smile activates the serotonin and the oxytocin, we know now. And they're just like so many of these little tips. And just adding that in is something we've been doing for many years, and adding that to that place where when we do this, we activate that compassion, we activate that heart coherence, and we make a difference just by doing that and sending that into the field, into the quantum field. So
exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, heart math is like they're really doing some of the hardcore science behind this, which is so wonderful. So thank you for bringing that more to the limelight here. And that's where the compassionate field theory is. When I was in a model of like, oh my gosh, what can I do with everything that's happening in the world? That's when I started realizing, wow, between the research at HeartMath, the research at the Center for Healthy Minds at University of Wisconsin with Dr. Davidson, the research coming out in quantum physics, everything that, wow, we're at this amazing time where each one of us can come together and actually have that impact. And when we reconnected, I had this epiphany, like, wow, you have this amazing group throughout the world based on all the incredible work you've done for all these decades, that this is like the beautiful flower in your hair, is like another, what I call, instead of brainstorming, that we brain blossom. And it's another petal unfolding. And we re-language things, okay? And you do that so beautifully in your work. You've re-languaged the labels for all the different types of touch and the power and the healing power of touch. And so that the Compassionate Equestrian, the compassionate field theory, is another petal opening up in the whole T-touch movement.
Yeah, beautiful. So you're third. Now you have the third leg.
Yeah, so the one is the Charter for Compassion, okay? The second is the 10 minutes of intention on compassion. The third is the Transspecies Field Theory, transforming this unconscious field that's always happening into a compassionate field, so that wherever you are having this positive impact on the field of every living being that you're interacting with, and countless other beings that you may not even be aware of. And so with that, it's all an invitation to help all of us work together to become part of this new movement, whether we call it the Compassionate Equestrian movement, the next pedal in the T-touch movement. It's all, but all of us can be of such benefit together. And the strength is in the loving support that we give each other in this. Okay. And that from each horse barn, because I agree with you, Linda, at a certain point, and that point was right before I wrote the book, I said, I'm giving up on the horse world, because I tried pioneering all these natural approaches, and God bless, they're being utilized by so many holistic veterinarians throughout the world now, and I'm so grateful for that. But I started saying, if we don't shift the heart and minds of the person at the other end of the reins, it's, like, again, putting a Band-Aid on the Titanic.
Well, I have a couple of things. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a couple of things. One is for those listeners and your readers who talk about the TED Talks. You must be acquainted with My Stroke of Insight by Dr.
Yes.
Jill Bolte Taylor.
Yeah.
And you must, I've seen it so many times. She does an amazing TED Talk about how when she was 39, she had a stroke that completely flooded out the left side of her brain. And she just explains how she felt when she suddenly could feel a part of all, rather than being separated by the ego, left brain self, which we need.
Yes.
But we can have the whole. We can have it all. And so I just wanted to make people aware of that. If you want, I get this chicken skin, as they say here where I live in Hawaii, every time I hear her say that, how she suddenly was aware of all that is, and that she was a part of all it is. And another thing that I want you to address is, it's a big part of my life and the teachings that we do, and that is this concept of forgiveness of ourselves, our horses, our families, each other. And we come from the place of Ho'oponopono, being influenced very much here in Hawaii with this. It's a Hawaiian prayer ritual, but you speak to this in the book. And I think this is such an important thing, because if you've been in the horse world, and I know some of you have been a long time, we've all done things with horses we would never do again, because we didn't know any better. And the horses do forgive us, and we need to forgive ourselves. And that's part of the healing on the planet, is coming to a place that knowing, and you and I have talked about this, we all do our best. It's all we can do. And we can hold that for each one of us, that we can do our best, and when we support each other in that possibility, I think we strengthen that field.
And, for me, it's that you say in the horse world, but for all of us who had a dog and a cat, a dog or a cat or a bird or a lizard, whatever we had, or a parent or a sibling or a relationship with someone, that we take from that and we ask that for forgiveness and grow forward with that, right? Because to me, it's all of it.
Yes. And actually, forgiveness is the 25th principle in the book. And I was like I said, this has to be the final principle, because forgiveness is the key. And we've all, like you said, whether it's a horse, a dog, a cat, and ourselves, and I share in that chapter how my journey has been a continuous journey of forgiveness. And part of that forgiveness is forgiving ourselves. It's self-compassion. Because how many times, and when I was writing that chapter, I was having visions of memories of oh, I could have been more compassionate here, or I could have done this, or I could have done that. And we give exercises, and one of the key exercises is Ho'oponopono. And Linda and I had chatted about this, and it's in the book. And if Linda wants to explain a little bit more, because you're in Hawaii, you can share more. But it's in the book. It's about forgiving everyone, including ourselves, because we're all human beings. We're all doing the best we can in the moment that we can. And my journey has been, most of my family was killed in the Holocaust. So there's a tremendous awareness. I realized my journey was going from realizing what self versus other, separation, hatred can do, to oh, okay, my journey in this life is helping to help everyone realize we are all one in a bigger picture. And this isn't just foo-foo. Again, if you listen to all the quantum physicists, you read the teachings, the insights from Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, all these people, they all come down to the oneness, okay? And the more we come back to oneness, the more we come back to forgiving as much as we can. And sometimes we can't forgive in the moment. And you go, okay, I have to forgive myself that I can't forgive in this moment. But then explore that too. And that forgiveness is the key. So I would just Linda, if you want to explain a little bit more on Ho'oponopono, since you live in Hawaii.
Well, I want to interject at this point. There are times when we think we can't forgive, but the power of a Ho'oponopono prayer ritual is because it's such an ancient, as a matter of fact, my favorite book is the book entitled Ho'oponopono by Ulrich Dupre. And what he says is that this is not just Hawaiian. He believes it's way beyond, it's off planet, it's universal. And so in a couple of places where I was in a situation where I just felt I didn't want to live when I understood what was going on the planet. And I just happened to have this book sitting on right in this living room where I am, on a coffee table that somebody had given me the year before. And I said, I can't feel like this. I need help. I need help. I know I'm here for a purpose on the planet. I can't want to kill myself, or the person that was the problem at the time. And I opened this book, and I just happened to open it to the prayer ritual, which is 4 phrases, and you can choose what suits you. And that says, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you. And it's through us, because we are all connected. We're at the amazing nucleus of the cell. We're all one being. We're all one. And so that has helped me so much. And that really, I was really thrilled when I saw that we went from compassion to forgiveness, because that's part of the journey. And one of the things that really influenced me, one of the journals that HeartMath put out, I don't know, at least 10 years ago, that I happened to read, is that how we speak or think about our own selves, our own bodies, actually affects every cell in our body. And I don't know if I've never seen this written, but I have had the good fortune of working closely with Bruce Lipton last year. And one of the things that he said is that every cell in our body has its own immune system. And what HeartMath wrote is that how we speak to our bodies really makes a difference in our immune health. And so until I read that, I used to say, oh, Linda, that was stupid. And when I read that simple, clear statement from HeartMath based on much research, I stopped doing that. And I started having great gratitude for these 50 trillion approximately cells in the average human body. And so that's a prayer that I do. And we have this thing, it's actually, you can see it on YouTube, Elinor videoed of me, and we just go over the whole body, just a couple of minutes, in the shower before you get up, just thanking every part of our body, every single part of our body, and smiling at them. And it doesn't matter what we think, or if it's maybe has pain, or maybe it's not perfect, but thanking the fact that we can be here together. That's such a great gift.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Linda. It's so great, our interactions between the two of us and with Elinor, because Elinor actually, the first time we Zoomed, the three of us, it stimulated something in Elinor that she and I have been chatting about, is the way that I've been teaching veterinary acupuncture for the last 15 years is based on what's called the liquid crystalline collagen continuum theory of acupuncture and consciousness. And it ties right into T-Touch. And it's what's amazing, once I started, because as one of the pioneers in acupuncture, there were all these discussions and debates and arguments. Oh, it's all traditional Chinese medicine theory. And then the scientists say that's a bunch of bunk. It's all in the nervous system, or it's all in the vascular system, or it's all this. And when I came across Dr. May Ho's explanation of it, as she's a researcher in England, and she proposed this liquid crystalline collagen continuum theory, all of a sudden, every light bulb and every cell in me lit up. And I realized, oh, this explains all of it. And in a nutshell, okay, for time's sake, but I do talk about
I'm waiting for your nutshell about that.
The nutshell is that our fascia, our connective tissue, is comprised of two components, water and collagen. These are the two best conductors of electricity, okay? And they wrap around every blood vessel, every nerve, our lymphatics, they wrap around the acupuncture points. They are what connect our skin, our connective tissue, connecting our skin to the rest of our body. They also wrap around every nerve, go through into the central nervous system, in our spinal cord, up to the brain. When they were doing functional MRIs and trying to figure out the speed of transmission of acupuncture and how you could stimulate one point on your little toe, and within seconds, the brain would light up, and that point is related to one point in the optical cortex in our brain, and it lit up that fast, and it can't be explained by nerve transmission, vascular transmission, anything, only by this liquid crystal. So then realize that this liquid crystal, we literally are a liquid crystalline display screen, just like an LED, LCD display screen on our computer. And so then the question is, what do we want to display to the world? Okay, and then we realize that that liquid crystalline is this bioelectrical communication system in our cells that's also continuously communicating with everything else anywhere, everywhere.
And isn't that interesting that it was in the 50s actually that this first came up, right? From what you sent me, that first paper.
Yeah.
And it's been ignored all this time.
Yeah. And it explains everything. And I watch when I lecture on this in veterinary conferences, I watch everyone's eyes light up because you realize, oh my God, this is part of the interconnectedness of all. And, as quantum physics, as they're finding dark matter and they're, and I hate these names that they put on dark matter, this and that. In my new book, I talk about that I'm working on now. I say, instead of calling them quarks and gluons and this and that, we should call them joyons and awakons and, change the name. And that, wait, it isn't dark matter. It's like energy. And we are all energy. And whenever you watch trees dancing together, when you watch the wind going through, you watch animals together. And the other beauty is once we are aware of that in our own consciousness, magic happens. And the talks about the Garden of Eden unfold. Like as I become more and more aware of this and I've become a bit of a recluse in my cabin, then all of a sudden, wild peacocks showed up on my deck, and they've moved in, and they live with me now, and they watch everything everywhere I go. They go window to window and hang out with me. And families of deer they're born underneath the deck. They bring their babies to my front door as soon as they're born. And I start realizing we do live in a Garden of Eden. We just don't realize it. And once we become aware of all these things, one of the keys is becoming aware that it's possible and it's happening. And once we become aware of it, then we become part of that awakened, aware, interconnected field again, rather than a separate, isolated being.
And giving thanks each day.
Yes, gratitude is one of the other keys. Yeah, gratitude, forgiveness, awareness, loving kindness, compassion.
And you bring this up in your book because actually our last book club was on One Mind by Dr. Larry Dawsey, and you mentioned him in your book.
Yes.
One of the things that he wrote, which you also mentioned in the book, was Reinventing Medicine. In that, he wrote that the mind is infinite, that my mind touches and is touched by everyone's, and all minds are linked. And when I read that, I wanted to write to him and say, and I'm sure this is true with our mind and the trees and the flowers and all of the animals and the birds, as you say. And then he starts off his next book, The One Mind, if of course you remember, when he says that he started to write this one mind, that those coyotes who'd never come around before were staring in his window, making sure he got it right. And I love that you bring this in your book.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And I offer this invitation again to everyone who's watching this. It isn't something that you, Linda, or Dr. Dawsey, Larry Dawsey, who he wrote a beautiful comment from my last book, Kindred Spirits and everything. It isn't limited to us. Every person watching this can do that. All we have to do is become aware of it and then bring that intention in, because everywhere I go, I sit down and a hummingbird will come right to my third eye and look me right in the eye. And I just love that this happens and this can happen. And we need to, instead of becoming cyborgs and putting our cell phone to our third eye, we need to re-invite the natural world, the plants, the animals, other humans, all of us. And I love your heart hug and your visualizations and your exercises. All these things are, I don't want to say tools, because then it goes into a mechanistic. They are blessings to reconnect us to the beauty of all that really is, that we're being blocked from now.
And recognize all the miracles that happen each day in every one of our lives if we just begin watching.
Yes, and as you said, and be grateful for them all. And sometimes something doesn't seem like a miracle. Yeah. And like when I was going through some really challenging times in my life 7-8 years ago, And I was falling back into an old pattern of victim consciousness, saying, why is this happening to me? And one dear friend said, Allen, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? All you have to do is change one word, change it from 2 to 4. Why is this happening for me? And all of a sudden, our perspective on life changes. And that's what happened to me. My one friend who shifted that, I'm so grateful for, because all of a sudden I said, okay, why am I going through all these really challenging, dark times? And I said, okay, why is it happening for me? And then everything that may not seem like a blessing, may not seem like a miracle, at some point you realize, oh, wow, this was a miracle, and I needed to go through this, and I needed to go through that dark time to see the light more.
And I've been having a practice for many, many years, and it really takes practice, because it's not part of the human without conscious intention, and that is practicing seeing the half-empty glass as half full. We can always find something, always, no matter what it is. Just find that place of gratitude for what is happening. And I don't say that for other people. Each one of us, I can't say that for someone else, but I certainly can practice that for myself, knowing that each time I practice that, I am connected to all beings, as each one of us is, and that every thought, feeling, emotion, and belief that we have make a difference. That particular statement is from The Spontaneous Healing of Belief from Greg Braden. It's one of his many books that I just really read over and over and love. And so all these things are in your book. And that's why it's not just for horse people at all. It's for all of us to remember and to make these connections.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, if we just substitute the word horse everywhere with any other being that we want to, that's the message of the book. And, you know, my parents were great examples for me of the contrast that you talk about. You know, like my mother, and God bless her, and she was a great teacher for me, but the glass was always half empty. And my father, that glass was always half full. And it was a constant teaching for me in my life. Which way do I want to experience it?
That was an interesting situation you put yourself in, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I'm so glad you're here smiling now with us, because, wow, invaluable teachings.
Yes, yes. And I guess Elinor is putting up, do we want to have any questions? Is that right? This is my first real experience on Zoom.
Good for you. You actually saw the chat box. So
yeah, so
I'm
thank you, Linda. Thank you, Elinor. And I hope this is a benefit to everyone watching, and I'm open to any questions.
So typically when there's a lot of people, because there are a lot of people on, if I unmute everybody at the same time. Oh, Gika writes, thank you. What a lovely discussion. And somebody else is saying that this has been amazing. But I would like to see if everyone can keep their environment really quiet around them. And I'll experiment with seeing if I can unmute everybody for a moment. Or what we can do is put in a piece in the chat box, and then I can unmute you. So let me try by unmuting everybody. Unmute all. Okay, does anybody have a question they would like to ask?
I do.
Okay.
I have a question for Allen.
So introduce yourself.
I'm Sally Morgan, a longtime T-Touch practitioner in Massachusetts, and I was at that training in Kent with Linda and Allen years ago. And Allen, I was looking for something in a book I have the other day, and I think you might be familiar with it. It's by Oshman, and it's called Energy Medicine. Do you know that book?
I know many books on energy medicine. Oshman, did you say?
Yeah, Oschman, because he has chapters and chapters about this, particularly about fascia. and the energetic component of fascia. And it's he's from England, so he may well have a reference to May Ho in it. I have to look because his book is maybe 15 years old. But
I'll have to
it's
take a look at it. Thank you.
you will, because it's about how it's research to look at how energy medicine works. And so they measure, the energy coming off of practitioners' hands, and they measure like the speed of fascia and things like that. And it's got a lot of physics in it, but it's a really great little book.
And Sally, one more time, what is the name of the book?
It's called Energy Medicine.
And who's the author?
Oshman. I'm going to get it right now so I can tell you all the details.
Okay, and how do you
Thank
spell
you,
it?
Sally.
It's Energy Medicine, the Scientific Basis, forward by Candace Pert, and the guy is James Oshman.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's great.
And then I have one other question/comment. Linda, when you were talking about thanking your cells every day and how important that is, I have to add that Bernie Siegel, who I worked with for a while, really, really speaks to the value of thanking your cells every day. He has said on numerous occasions that nearly every person he knows who has had cancer or a life-threatening disease has a period that they can specifically recall when they were not thanking their cells and not giving their body "I want you to live" messages. And he feels that that's very, very important for people with any kind of health problem, to send your body messages that you want it to be well and healthy.
Thank you for bringing him in here.
Thank you. That's a great thing to bring up. Yeah.
I'm going to have to mute everybody because there's a lot of noise. So hold on 1 second. 1 sec. And then I'm going to unmute and find Linda. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry because of the noise. I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm working with a woman with cancer and wanted to talk with her about it. And she won't go there. She will do every holistic, every alternative, everything, and won't go there.
Have you introduced her to the Ulrich Dupre's Ho'oponopono?
No.
We did the book.
Okay.
Send her to the book club.
Okay. Thank you.
It might be a possibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's more feasible for someone who's afraid to touch it, right?
Right.
Wow, fantastic. So I'm going to ask anyone to put in the chat box if you have anything that you would like to ask, and then I will unmute you so we won't get all the extra noise. Is everybody good? Wow, fantastic. Okay, I think we have everybody is in a hypnotic trance. So, Linda, hold on 1 sec. Sally wants to ask something. Okay.
Yes, I have another thing for you, Elinor, with your client with cancer. One of the other things that you might find interesting for your own knowledge and perhaps one day pass on to them is that Bernie has asked people in meeting after meeting after meeting if anyone has regrets in their life about having cancer, and rarely does someone regret having had it, because the spiritual journey you go on and the knowledge of yourself and the people around you is so profound that no one would trade that for anything. People find new careers and they get rid of family situations that are hindering them and their development. So even though it's terrible at the time, for many people, even if they die, they come to a spiritual reckoning with their situation in life that is very important and part of their understanding of the meaning of existence, really.
And Sally, please, some may not realize you're talking about Dr. Bernie Siegel.
Right, Bernie Siegel, famous cancer surgeon, guy from Yale.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so and then
just wrote a nice new book on the healing.
That's right, Alan.
That I ended up writing the forward for. We're old friends. Yeah.
What's the name of the book?
Love
medicine and miracles in animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's asking people to buy it because I just got a really nice email from him.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad that works.
My first book for the public was called Love, Miracles, and Animal Healing, based upon his first book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And so we danced back and forth. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. And okay. And so this book you're discussing was by Bernie Siegel?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just came out in June, I believe.
Okay. And then your book was called what?
Mine is called Love, Miracles, and Animal Healing.
Love, Miracles, and Animal Healing. Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. And actually in the forward, I bring up, as Linda was talking about, the oneness and my own experience. I've had a number of different epiphanies and experiences about the oneness, and I share them a little bit in the forward, and he goes through story after story of that experience. And, the more, again, I've had, it's beyond this talk, but a number of near-death-like experiences and connected to what I call the beyond. It's beyond all labels, beyond everything. And then you realize the real beauty and the love, and it is all love. Essentially, it's love, okay? But the interconnectedness of all. And then with that, it brings back, as Linda said, when she was going through, like, why am I still here? What am I to do? And I know so many different people along the spiritual journey that have all confronted that question, that moment. And then you come back and you go, okay, we're here to be a benefit to all beings. And I just was with Jane Goodall this weekend when she was here in British Columbia, and actually did an interview with her, but we're old friends. And she's, again, another one of these beings that just travels the world spreading that message. And we each have our own journey in sharing, and that resonates with different audiences. Like I still go back in Compassionate Equestrian, all my books, I have endless quotes from Albert Einstein. And Einstein and Tesla, they both go and say everything is energy and frequency, and anything else is an elaboration on that. So then the question when we talk about resonance and heart resonance and this and that is, do we resonate? What do we resonate with? And the message can be given by so many people in so many ways about the interconnectedness of all beings and compassion and loving kindness. And the reason so many give it in different ways is because different people resonate with that. But that is the heart resonance that we all need to share in this world.
And I think one of the things we have to share now, because I see some people are opting out because we're beyond.
We're over time. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's perfect. We always go a little over, Ellen. Come on, we can't just. I think that we wanted to talk about our next book club, right? What we're going to be.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Because I'm leaving for Europe on Tuesday with my husband, Roland, and it's going to be a while. I think we're going to come, when I come back to the States in May, we're going to have our book club when I'm in actually Minneapolis doing a T-Touch for Human workshop. And so I decided, because Alan, you mentioned, that place where you go through the dark place of the soul. And people see my life and think, that it's always been wonderful. And I tell you, this book, how many, I wish I could see hands, know The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Many, many people know it, but I also run into a lot who don't know it. And I'm just going to share a little bit about how this changed my life, because one night when I don't know, I maybe was 27 years old, and I was sitting in my kitchen at midnight boohooing because my husband was sleeping with a friend.
Not Roland. She's not talking about Roland.
and bless him.
Yes.
No, I'm serious. And And so I was thinking, wait, what can I do? And I went to our library and I just put my hand up there and I pulled down this book and I opened it to the chapter on sorrow and joy. And it set the tone for my life. And I want to share that. And I know that some of you will also have stories that maybe share in those dark times that can set you on a path that will bring you eventually to the greatest, deepest joy from understanding. But that's just a little book. It doesn't take much to read. And this one I am going to bring in because, Alan, we haven't talked about this for a long time, and I'm going to bend your ears some more. But this is a book by Lewis Wolfert, How We Live and Why We Die. And the subtitle is what got me, which is The Secret Lives of Cells. Because my life has been changed by reading Sir Charles Sherrington, Man on His Nature. And I still have that book. And when I read the one sentence that every cell knows its function in the body, and he wrote its function in the universe, that got me. And that set me on this amazing path of honoring, of recognizing, of celebrating the amazing wisdom of ourselves, because every cell in our body actually has divine wisdom. And when we start to recognize that, it's a wow. And on the back of this book, the San Francisco Book Review wrote, like a nail-biting mystery, the author unravels the secrets locked up in the cell, a mind-expanding reading. And he's a PhD from the university in London. So the author is Lewis Wolpert, Wolpert. The subtitle is The Secret Lives of Cells.
Thank you.
And Science writes on the front, the secret lives of cells shouldn't be kept a secret. And Wolpert makes a good start at breaking the silence, impressively up to date. And that's the basis of Tellington T-Touch. That's why I can be in this state of really appreciating that and practicing seeing the glass half full, because of the honoring of this amazing body, the universe that make up our bodies, these cells. So it's going to be very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I understand we're running late. And it's such a joy to reconnect with you through this. And it's a true joy to share with you and all your followers on this.
So can I say something here? I want to show you this.
Oh, yeah.
When you said it's a joy reconnecting with Linda, here is the picture of in 1997 with Linda having the meeting, right, Linda? Right, so in the Veterinary Advisory Board for Animal Ambassadors, and look at all the people in there, and of course there's Dr. Allen Schoen on the bottom right-hand side of the picture.
Oh my gosh.
And Carrie Ridgway, remember?
Yeah, Carrie, yeah, back there, yeah. Oh wow.
Isn't that great?
You have to send me that picture.
Yeah, I will. 1997. It's on page. What did I say, Elinor?
I don't remember.
Well, I wrote it to you there.
I turned off my email, so I'll have to look for it.
It's in Shannon Wiles' book, Strike a Long Trot, and that picture. So I will send it to you, Ellen.
Okay. Oh, thank you. And much love and light to all of you.
Yes.
Same to you.
May the force be with you. Go forth and do good. Create a compassionate field.
And then the world becomes a better place.
Yeah.
Aloha, everybody.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll take the recording. I will put it up for everybody to have.
And share it. We'll put it out there on YouTube, right?
You better believe it.
Aloha.
Aloha.